Hello again and welcome back. On the lathe today I have a piece of ash that is 300mm across and 70mm thick, and what I have in mind for this piece of ash is a chip and dip bowl similar to the Digbo one that I turned a few months ago. I have it in mind as being a Christmas gift for my brother. So this blank is a little bit bigger than the piece of Digbo I had, so it should be easier to get a nice shape out of this than it was with the Digbo one. I should be able to have a slightly bigger trough for the crisps or pistachios or anything else that you would like to put in there. There are one or two cracks where it has opened up in the grain. It's been quite cold in the garage lately, but I'm sure as I turn the curve around here for the bowl and as I make a recess on the base here, that they should disappear and we shouldn't have any trouble with it. So let's get turning and see how this ash turns out. It's a little capped and out of balance right now because it's not perfectly round and it has warped. So the first thing I'll do is flatten off and draw up this shape face here and square off the edge here and turn away the crack that I have here. And I'll do that on a lower speed on my lathe at around 900 RPM, just until it's a bit balanced so that there isn't as much vibration with the turning. Right, so as I've been turning and shaping this, I was hoping that this crack that is here would turn out, but as is the usual story, it's become apparent that it's worse than what it was on the surface. I've got a piece of copper wire here, and it can actually force that quite deep down into this crack here. So I don't really want this to be left with a crack there, as this is going to be a bowl. So what I am thinking of doing is taking this off the lathe, taking it to the bandsaw, slicing down there, cutting out this part here that is cracked, and then gluing in a strip of another wood. I have here a piece of yew. So this is the right thickness, it's long enough, and I've not used yew before, so I think I'll use this as the insert in here, as there is some really nice figuring on this piece of ash, so I'm not prepared to let this stop the progress of this bowl. I'm just going to cut that part out and fill it with an equally nice piece of wood. Okay, I've taken the fence off the sled that I use for segmenting, and using some double-sided sticky tape I've stuck the blank down to the board. So what I'll do is make an initial cut to remove the end of the bowl blank here, then I'll move this over and make another slice to remove the defect. Then once I have that, I'll know the thickness of the insert that I need to glue in here, and then we'll cut that out of the yew. Okay, this is the scrap piece that we've removed here, and it's given me peace of mind on another thing as well, because there are these cracks here, and I was worried that they would begin to open up deeper into the bowl as well, but the cross section through the part we've cut out shows us that it's a superficial crack that is not going to have any effect later on in the hollowing. So with this insert we can see that, or with this piece we can see the thickness of the insert we need, which will be 25mm plus the kerf from both cuts, so that this first piece will go together and we should be left with pretty much the same diameter of bowl. So I'll cut the yew that will go in there now. I know that the kerf of my blade is 1mm and the insert I need is 25mm, so adding the kerf either side will be 27, but I'm going to give it an extra little bit as I'll sand either side of the yew, and I'll sand the faces of the ash prior to gluing. So I'll give a little bit more just to be sure that it will go together perfectly. I haven't worked with yew before, but cutting this, it's got a really nice aroma to it, and it's got some really interesting grain as well, so I think yew is something I'll get a bit more of in the future for a dedicated project to it. Okay, I've just finished doing a dry fit of the 3 pieces. It took a lot of trial and error to get the faces of each piece of wood flush enough with each other that I'm happy enough to glue it, as I don't want a bad glue joint separating and knocking me out when I'm turning it. But I've eventually got there. It would be a lot easier if I had a planer, or even if I just had a smoother cutting bandsaw blade. With the rough cut blade, I did need to sand the faces afterwards to clean them up to get a tight joint. But we've gotten there in the end. You can see that there's a nice flush joint, and I think the addition of the U with the ash is going to add a nice bit of character to it once it's finished. So I'll take this apart now, get it glued up, and then leave it overnight ready for us to fully get this turned and finished. We're back now after having glued in the U insert into this chip and dip bowl, and I remounted and turned it again off camera to save you having to see the same process again, and I've also sanded it and burnished it, so there's nothing more boring than just watching something be sanded. So we're ready now to give it a coat of oil to bring out the colour, and then I'll finish the outside of it with a coat of Yorkshire grit to give it a fine smooth polish, and then Hampshire Sheen high gloss to give it a gloss finish. I'll give you a close-up view now of the underside of this bowl. It is absolutely exquisite. This has obviously come from a part of a tree where there's been a few different limbs coming off of it, and so the grain goes in all different kinds of directions, and it lends itself to really quite stunning figuring. I think the addition of the U is quite a nice feature as well. I think it goes quite well with the tones of the ash. I'm really excited to turn this around now and turn the inside and see what it's going to look like in there. With the piece reversed, I can now square off the top of the blank, and then the first thing I'll do is work on the recess that this dish will sit into. happy now with the recess I have hollowed out for the dish. It's a nice, it's got an internal curve there for a bit more space for any pistachio shells, and the cup sits nicely in the recess as well. There was a few little cracks in the grain on the inside here, which I've sanded to get a build up of dust in the cracks, and then I've dabbed some thin CA in there. I've done that a few times to help fill with those voids and stabilise them, so we shouldn't have too much trouble when we hollow out the rest of the dish as far as cracks on the cup here that will be left. So we'll get to hollowing this out now so that we can get it finished. The more I've been turning away at this cup, the more of this U has been starting to come through, and I really like the layers in the grain that I'm getting with that, and it seems a shame that it's only on this small part here on this cup. So what I think I'm going to do, just to give this a bit more character and to have a bit more of the U visible, is I'm going to turn away this ash cup that is here, and I'm going to use some more of the U that I have, and I'm going to make a segmented ring to glue in here that I will turn into the cup, as I like the contrast that I'm getting between the ash and the U, and the grain on the U is really quite stunning, so I think it would be nice to have that all the way around here. I have been having trouble with cracks on the ash as well, so rather than having to mess around with stabilising that with CA glue and sawdust, I think it will be best for the overall finish of the piece to just take this away and have a nice ring of U on here. So I'll quickly make up the ring off camera. It'll be easier for me to do it without having to move the cup. Last night I turned down the ash cup that I had turned here, and I quickly segmented a ring of U and glued it on and left it overnight, and this morning I've spent half an hour just turning back to the point that I was at yesterday before I decided to make a U cup, and I'm really glad that I did, because it looks a lot nicer, I think, with the contrasting cup with the rest of the ash and the stripe there. It looked a lot better than just having a little bit of U on the side of the cup. So it just goes to show that sometimes when the wood's being a bit funny, it can be for a reason, and you can find some way to make your project piece even more beautiful at the end. So we have one last little bit of turning to do on this inside corner here to thin that out and have a uniform curve on the bottom here, and then we'll be able to sand and finish it. Right, I have it fully sanded to 400 grit now, and as you saw I burnished it with the shavings to close down the grain and give it a nice sheen ready for oil. So I'll put some oil on it now, I'll burnish the oil in for a little while, and then I'll finish it with Yorkshire grit and a stick of solid Carnauba wax so that I have a nice thick food safe finish to seal the wood and protect it. And here is the finished bowl. I'm really pleased with how this is finished. I think this is possibly the best finish I've gotten on a bowl. I think it's down to burnishing with the shavings before actually applying any finish to really close down the fibres of the wood to prepare for a polished surface. So it's finished with Yorkshire grit and Hampshire sheen on the outside, and on the inside Yorkshire grit and then Carnauba wax to give a food safe layer for the inside of this bowl, and it will be easy to maintain and just wipe down with a dry cloth. And I made a little adjustment to this one compared to the first one that I turned for myself. I've made it so that this little bowl sits higher up above the rest of the bowl, as on my own one it was level with the rim of the outside of the bowl. So when you fill this with crisps or anything, it tended to be above the level of the dip and bits would fall into it. With this you can completely fill the dish now, and your dip is going to be kept above the height of all of that. And again, for the likes of pistachio nuts or anything else, you can take the bowl out and the pistachio shells can go just in the centre on its own. But I really like ash. It's the first time I've turned a large thing of ash, and I really like the colour tones and the grain of it, and I think the hue goes nicely with it as well. I'm really pleased that I decided to change to a complete U cup in the middle here to complement the stripe. It's a lot better than having just the ash and a little piece of view that I had there before. So all in all, I'm really pleased with how this bowl has finished, and I'm sure my brother is really going to like it. And I hope you've enjoyed watching this video and watching this project. Thank you to all of my subscribers for continuing to support me and watch my videos. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please take the time to visit my channel and have a look through the other videos that I've done, and if you wish to subscribe before you leave. Thanks very much.